All right, so close your eyes for a second and imagine this.
Okay.
You're standing in modern-day North Yorkshire, England. Rolling farmland, those picturesque villages.
Yep.
But just picture that right beneath the surface, there's this hidden world, like a time capsule going all the way back to 9,000 BC.
Wow.
A period we call the Mesolithic. Now, this isn't Stonehenge, no grand monuments or anything like that.
Right.
But the secrets that are whispered at Carr, that's the place we're talking about, might just completely rewrite how we view our ancestors.
You know what really captivates me about Carr is how it just completely shatters that simplistic, caveman image.
Yeah.
We always kind of think of the Mesolithic as this time of just basic survival.
Right.
But Carr, the site, it reveals a depth of ingenuity, like a community that we don't typically associate with that era. It's amazing.
We've got two leading archaeologists.
Yeah.
Dr. Nick Overton and Dr. Barry Taylor.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with this place.
Right.
And their research is what we are diving into today.
I'm excited.
And let me tell you, it's not just for history buffs. Okay? This stuff really makes you think about what it means to be human, how we adapt, how we connect. It even gives you, a fresh perspective on resourcefulness. Something we all need these days, right?
Absolutely. I mean, imagine the Vale of Pickering, right?
Okay.
Not as farmland, but as this vast lake.
Oh.
Lake Flixton.
Oh, wow.
You've got islands dotting the surface, birch forests just teeming with life.
Beautiful.
It wasn't an easy life by any stretch, but it was a rich one, just full of challenges that spurred some pretty remarkable innovations.
Okay, so set the scene for us. The last ice age has just ended. The world is warming up, and this little community is setting up shop at Carr. What made this spot so special?
So most Mesolithic sites, they only give us stone tools.
Right.
And they're durable, but they're really limited in what they can tell us. Carr's different.
How so?
The soil, because it was so waterlogged, acted as this incredible preservative.
Ah.
So we find wood, bone, antler, things that usually decay completely in other places.
It's like a peek right through a window.
Yeah.
At their entire material culture. It's incredible.
It is.
So we're not just guessing what they used.
Yeah.
We're seeing the actual tools, the structures.
Yeah, right.
That's incredible.
It's amazing.
What's the biggest surprise? Like, what came out of the mud, so to speak?
Undoubtedly, it's these massive wooden platforms.
Really?
Yeah, we call them trackways. They were built right at the lake's edge. And these weren't simple lean-tos or anything. We're talking substantial constructions using whole tree trunks that were split into planks.
Wow.
It would have taken immense effort and coordination. This completely shatters the idea of Mesolithic people as just purely nomadic.
Hold on. We're talking 9,000 BC, right?
Yes.
There were no power tools, no Home Depot. How did they engineer something that complex?
I mean, that's the question that drives archaeologists, right?
Right.
But it speaks to a level of community organization that we just don't typically associate with hunter-gatherers. And it suggests a real desire to stay put, to invest in a place despite all the environmental changes happening all around them.
So not just surviving, but thriving.
Exactly.
Putting down roots in a changing world. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, what about their tools?
Yes.
Was it all just basic stone stuff? Or did they have more, specialized equipment? Especially given how rich this environment was.
They had an impressive toolkit.
Okay.
Especially for working with bone and antler. Some of the most striking finds are these barbed antler points.
Okay.
Exquisitely crafted. I mean, rows of barbs. You naturally think fishing, right?
Yeah, that seems like the obvious use. I mean, what else would you use those for?
Well, we have to broaden our perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
Lake Flixton was teeming with fish, but they also had deer, boar, even aurochs.
Aurochs, what are those?
Like massive wild cattle that roamed Europe back then.
Wow.
So these points could have been spear tips or, and this is where it gets exciting, part of early arrows.
Wait, bows and arrows that are...
There's evidence suggesting they were experimenting with archery.
Oh, wow.
A fragment of a bow was actually found at Carr.
Really?
Yeah. Perhaps for smaller game or birds initially, but still, it changes our understanding of their hunting techniques.
Speaking of which, you mentioned the lake being central to their lives. Did they find any boats? It seems like a no-brainer for fishing and transportation.
It's actually a mystery that haunts Dr. Taylor, one of the archaeologists we're talking about today.
Oh, really?
He's convinced they had watercraft, I mean, the lake's too perfect not to have them.
Right.
But wood and hide boats, especially from that era, they're so incredibly fragile. It's possible they're out there just waiting to be found, or maybe they've simply vanished over the millennia.
Like a giant jigsaw puzzle, but we're missing a few pieces.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the weirdest find. These antler frontlets. They sound straight out of a fantasy novel.
They're strange.
What exactly are we talking about here?
Imagine a red deer skull, but modified. They trimmed it down, just leaving the forehead with the antler attachments. Some have these shortened antlers, others have holes drilled in them. And the strangest part, they're unique to Carr.
Really?
No other Mesolithic site in Britain has them.
Okay. That's intriguing and creepy all at once. What on earth were they used for?
That's the million-dollar question. Archaeologists have been debating this for decades. Headdresses for rituals or ceremonies is a popular theory.
I can kind of see it, like a shaman.
Yeah.
Adorned with antlers.
Yeah.
Leading a ritual under an open sky. I mean, it's a powerful image. But is there any evidence to support that?
Oh, it's fascinating, isn't it? Shamanism was likely prevalent in many Mesolithic societies, that belief system connecting humans and nature.
Right.
And the shaman acted as a bridge between those worlds.
So maybe those antler frontlets help the shaman, tap into animal spirits or even shapeshift.
Could be.
But couldn't they also have been practical?
Yeah.
Like camouflage for hunting.
That's a good point. I mean, hunting disguises, they were definitely used in other cultures.
Right.
The Carr frontlets could have served that purpose too.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were more symbolic,
Okay.
representing status, skill, or even a clan's connection to certain animals.
So we have all these amazing artifacts,
Yeah.
brimming with potential meaning, but their exact purpose remains a mystery. It's like a giant puzzle, but with some pieces missing.
Yeah.
Speaking of missing pieces, let's shift gears a little bit
Okay.
and talk about the everyday lives of these people.
Sure.
What were they eating? I mean, no grocery stores, no takeout back then.
Right. They were hunter-gatherers, relying entirely on their knowledge of the land. And thankfully, Carr offers a pretty clear picture of their diet.
Okay.
Lake Flixton, for example, it was a major food source. We find bones from pike, perch, roach, even eels.
Eels.
Yeah.
That's a bold culinary choice for
Yeah.
9000 BC.
But I guess when you're reliant on what nature provides, you can't be too picky, right?
Exactly. You have to use what you got.
Yeah.
They weren't just passively waiting for fish to bite either.
Right. We know from the variety of fish bones that they were likely using nets, traps, all sorts of techniques to maximize their catch. It really speaks to their resourcefulness
Yeah.
and understanding of that lake's ecosystem.
So fish was a staple. Okay.
Mm.
What about land animals?
Yeah,
Were they hunting bigger game as well?
absolutely. We find bones from red deer, roe deer, wild boar, and even aurochs.
Aurochs. Refresh my memory. What were those again?
Imagine like a massive wild cow. It's the ancestor of modern cattle, but much larger, much fiercer. Taking down an auroch, oh man, that would require incredible skill, planning, and coordination.
So some serious teamwork going on. This really challenges that notion of, Mesolithic people as just solitary wanderers.
Yeah.
This was organized strategic hunting.
For sure. And we can't forget about the plant foods either.
Right.
While they don't preserve as well as bone, other Mesolithic sites show that they were foraging for nuts, berries, roots, seasonal plants. I mean, they were experts in knowing what was edible, where to find it, and when.
It makes you wonder how much knowledge of edible plants had just been lost over time.
I know.
We rely so heavily on supermarkets and grocery stores. That connection to the natural world has definitely diminished for us.
That's a really good point. These people, they had to be so deeply attuned to the nuances of their environment, not just for survival, but to thrive.
Right.
They understood the interconnectedness of that ecosystem in a way that, like you said, we're only now starting to rediscover.
Right. So we've got a glimpse of their diet.
Yes.
Diverse, hard-earned. But what about their social lives?
Okay.
Were they living in small family groups, or were there larger gatherings happening at Carr?
Well, that's where those massive wooden platforms really come back into play.
No.
Building something that large, that complex, it would require more than just a few families.
Yeah.
It suggests a much larger community coming together, cooperating, and likely engaging in social interactions.
Beyond just immediate kinship. So we're talking about community gatherings, maybe feasts, ceremonies, rituals. What kind of evidence supports that theory?
Direct evidence of social gatherings, it's really tricky to find in archaeology.
I can imagine.
But those platforms, they're massive investments of time and energy. It's hard to imagine them being purely functional.
Right. You wouldn't go through all that effort just to create a simple walkway.
Exactly.
It had to have social, maybe even spiritual significance. What about those antler frontlets? Could they have played a role in these gatherings?
Absolutely. Whether they were worn as headdresses or used symbolically or even just displayed, those frontlets could have been really powerful objects in communal rituals or ceremonies.
Right.
I mean, picture this. A group of people gathered on those platforms, maybe around a fire. The antler frontlets are reflecting the flickering light.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a captivating image, isn't it?
It really is. It makes you feel, I don't know, a connection to these people,
Yeah.
to their sense of community and shared purpose. And it makes you wonder, what ultimately happened to this community? If Carr was such a thriving settlement, why did they eventually abandon it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there are several possible explanations. Remember those environmental changes we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Well, Lake Flixton was slowly filling in with peat, transforming from a deep lake into a much shallower, marshier environment.
So their prime fishing spot was turning into a swamp. Not exactly ideal.
Yeah, not so great. And it's possible that this ecological shift just made Carr less attractive. Maybe fish populations declined, other resources became scarce, or it just became too difficult to maintain their way of life there.
Or maybe they just decided to move on to greener pastures.
Could be.
Being hunter-gatherers, I mean, they were probably used to adapting to change and moving as needed. It's interesting to think about how their intimate knowledge of the environment would have factored into those decisions.
That's a great point. We often romanticize hunter-gatherer life, but they weren't just passively wandering around. I mean, they made very deliberate choices, weighing the pros and cons of different locations, considering the availability of resources, the changing seasons, a whole host of other factors we don't even think about.
So Carr represents a chapter in their story, a period of flourishing in a particular environment. But ultimately, their journey continued elsewhere.
Mm.
It's a bit melancholy to think about this vibrant community disappearing,
Yeah.
just leaving behind these, I don't know, tantalizing clues for us to decipher thousands of years later.
But that's also what makes archaeology so fascinating, isn't it? It's like piecing together this puzzle,
Right.
using these fragments of evidence to reconstruct not just events, but ways of life, beliefs, even emotions. And in the case of Carr, it's helping us reshape our understanding of the entire Mesolithic period.
It's challenging those old assumptions about our ancestors,
Yeah.
about them being primitive and simplistic.
Yeah.
We're seeing their ingenuity, their adaptability, their social complexity.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that primitive doesn't mean lacking intelligence or sophistication.
Exactly. I mean, they were operating within different constraints, for sure. But they were just as human as we are, with the same capacity for innovation, creativity, and problem solving. And their story, it isn't just about the past. I mean, it has relevance for us today.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does Carr speak to the challenges we face in the modern world?
Right.
What can we learn from these people who lived so long ago?
Well, that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. We'll delve into the broader implications of Carr, connecting it to wider themes of human history, environmental change, and the enduring legacy of the Mesolithic period.
Okay, so we've traveled all the way back to the Mesolithic,
We have.
explored the wonders of Carr. We even tasted a bit of virtual eel.
Right.
I think I'll pass on that next
Yeah.
time. But jokes aside, this isn't just about ancient history. You hinted that Carr, this place, holds lessons for us today.
Mm.
What makes this site relevant to us in the modern world?
Well, I think it's all about perspective, you know?
Okay.
Seeing ourselves in these long-gone communities. Like, take their adaptability, for instance.
Okay.
They faced this changing climate, this shifting landscape,
Right.
and yet they found ways not only to survive, but to thrive.
Resourcefulness. That's definitely something we admire.
Yeah.
But what's the specific connection to our modern challenges?
Well, I mean, we're facing our own environmental shifts now. Resource depletion, climate change.
Right.
Carr reminds us that humans can adapt.
Right.
We have that capacity within us.
Yeah.
But it's about respecting the environment,
Yeah.
not just exploiting it.
That's a key difference, isn't it? I mean, we often prioritize immediate gains over long-term sustainability.
Yeah.
It's almost as if we've lost that connection to the land, that understanding that we're part of an ecosystem, not separate from it.
I think that's right. I mean, and that's not romanticizing the past or anything. Life back then was harsh.
Of course, yeah.
But they had to be attuned to nature's rhythms.
They had no choice.
Right, exactly. They couldn't afford to ignore them.
And their ingenuity is also just striking.
Yeah.
In creating those platforms,
Right.
the tools,
Yeah.
experimenting with archery, all with limited materials. I mean, it makes you wonder what we could achieve if we just tapped into that same resourcefulness.
I know. Sometimes it feels like we're so overly reliant on technology
Right.
that we've almost forgotten that very basic human capacity to problem solve
Right.
with what's at hand.
Just use what you've got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Carr is a testament to that ingenuity, even without all the conveniences that we take for granted.
And, we can't forget the community aspect.
Of course not.
I mean, those platforms weren't built by solitary geniuses.
No.
It took cooperation on a scale that we just rarely see today.
That sense of a shared purpose,
Yeah.
working towards a common goal, that's vital for any society.
Yeah.
I think Carr really highlights that, We're social creatures.
Right.
We thrive through connection, not just our own individual pursuits.
It's almost like a blueprint for tackling these modern problems, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I mean, facing climate change,
Mm-hmm.
inequality. We need that mix of adaptability, ingenuity, and community spirit that defined Carr.
Absolutely. It's not about idealizing the past or anything, but recognizing those enduring human strengths.
Yeah.
Carr isn't just a dig site, it's a mirror.
Oh, wow.
Reflecting our own potential,
Yeah.
for better or for worse.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
it's not just about the facts and the artifacts.
No.
It's about inspiration.
Right, precisely. I mean, if those communities could thrive in the face of their challenges, surely we can learn from them,
Yeah.
apply those same core values to our own time. That's the true legacy of a place like Carr.
That's beautifully put. Thank you for taking us on this journey. It's been truly eye-opening.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners, if Carr has sparked your curiosity, remember the past is full of stories waiting to be uncovered. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and join us next time for another deep dive into this fascinating world of knowledge.